4.10, in this section, we're going to kind of work backwards. We're going to write quadratic functions and models, meaning we're going to take some data and come up with the equation from that data. There's also going to be one example that requires a graphing calculator in this section. So we want to come up with the quadratic function for the parabola shown. I see a vertex. That makes me think vertex form, which is probably the easiest way to come up with an equation for this guy. We know h and k, so I can start by just plugging those numbers into my equation. What I don't know is a. To figure out a, we've done stuff similar to this in the past. We can plug in the x and y that we do know to solve for a. We know that we can plug in 3 for x, 2 for y. Whoops, should not have written y, I should write 2. We can solve for y, we can solve for a at this point. You have to excuse any mistakes I happen to make. As you can see, I'm recording this at 10 o'clock at night. I'm tired. And we solve for a. Once we have a, we can write our answer. And we got it. Next up, write a quadratic equation for the parabola shown. This time we're given x-intercepts. So you might think to use intercept form, which would be a great idea. Go ahead and pause the video, try to plug in the correct numbers, and then use that given point, 3, 2, to solve for a. Once you solve for a, you got to go one step further and actually write out your answer. You don't have to put it in standard form. It doesn't tell you to put it in any specific form. So we can just leave it in intercept form, keep things simple. If it's for multiple choice, we'd have to match it to whatever form the multiple choice answers gave us. Next one's the longest one. We're given 3 points. This is actually a little bit annoying if you think about what's going on in standard form. We can plug in these x and y values 3 different times. So let's look what that would do. If I plug in -1 for x and -3 for y, I'm going to get something like this. Now if I plug in 0 and -4, I'm going to get something like this. And if I plug in 2 and 6, I'm going to get something like this. Now, are you savvy enough to figure out why I'm saying this is going to potentially be a long problem? Think about it. If you thought systems of equations, you're right. Now, we could solve this system of equations using the methods from the 3 variables, 3 unknowns. You could also solve the system of equations using the graphing calculator if you did those extra sections on matrices. Whichever way you do it, you'll eventually figure out a equals 2, b equals 1, and c equals -4. So we can just plug those numbers into our standard equation. By no means am I saying that it was a fast process to get these, especially if you're not using the graphing calculator. If you don't know what I'm talking about with the graphing calculator, there's some sections in chapter 3 where you can learn how to use a graphing calculator to solve these messy systems of equations. Might be something you want to look at. You could also do it the long way. At this point, you can pause the video and try these on your own, or you can do that later. Last problem. Go ahead and pause the video, read what's going on, and I will talk about it. This one, you're going to have to use a graphing calculator to plot some points. And when you plot those points, you're going to see that they make a general parabola shape. And then the graphing calculator will actually come up with an equation for you. I'm not going to go through those steps in the video. Go ahead and check out the chapter 4 resources page, and I'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to put this information into the calculator, how to look at the points on a graph, and how to get your final answer. Once you do that, you'll see your final answer is something like this. There's no way you'll come up with this without a graphing calculator. I don't know if it's even possible. Maybe talk to Mr. Wood. He's the stats expert. He might know a way to do this without a graphing calculator, but he is definitely better than me when it comes to that. At this point, you could pause the video and try this on your own, or you can do that later. That's it. We're done with chapter 4.